I'd like to welcome everybody back to the Secure Society Podcast. This is episode 3, and we aren't ready to announce it just quite yet, but we've got something really exciting in the works. We've talked in the past about how we really want to be able to take the ideas and the strengths of the scouting program and make it more something the whole family can use, that everybody can understand and learn and grow and still learn those essential skills. And how we're going to start that out, and we're going to talk about that quite a bit today, is what we're calling accolades. So what does that mean? It's kind of like, if you know anything about the scouting program, there's certain things that you learn, and once you learn it, you earn a merit badge, right? So maybe it's first aid, or maybe it's wilderness survival, maybe it's swimming. It could be something as simple as that. But these are the basics, and once you've learned it, you earn it. And that we're going to expound upon that. And what we're calling our version is accolades. And this is stuff that really should take your camping to the next level. It should take your time out in nature to the next level, that you're actually, like we said in episode 2, it's helping you grow. It's not just being out there, which is great, but actually learning and becoming more. And obviously not all the accolades will revolve around that, but really they should help you get one with nature and one with your family, and just learn how to be a better person in every single circumstance. I mean, there's a lot that can be learned. And I think anybody that's been in the Boy Scout or the Girl Scout program, because they have very similar things that they do, will know that, and will honestly tell you that what they learned in Scouts definitely made them a better person. And we want to be able to bring that to you and help you continue on. So first and foremost, like I said, what we're really talking about today is that first accolade. And this, we would definitely recommend getting to know, especially if you're ever going to go camping outside of the general, just specific, like, I'm going to the local KOA, or I'm going to go to a basic campground. I mean, that's great. That's awesome. And if that's what you're doing, but if you really want to get out into nature, this first accolade that we're going to talk about today is pretty essential that you and your family know. And really that's firearm basics. I know we've talked about firearms a lot, but the reason why we thought about this is I had recently a person in our local area pose a question on Facebook saying, well, is there any dangerous animals out here? And people were like, well, yeah, even if you go hiking in the mountains, there's cougars, there's bears, there's coyote. I mean, even a moose could get you, right? And they're like, well, what do I do? And most people are like, well, if you're that paranoid about it, get a firearm and be aware of your surroundings. Take a little practice training on that. And they were vehemently against it. They were like, no way. I don't want anything to do with guns. But that's the thing, is we're in nature. Nature wins. It's not like being in the city. When you're out in nature, and when you're out camping, out in the wilderness, anything like that you want to do, we really do recommend that you at least know the basics of firearm safety, that if you have to use one for an emergency situation, that you can. So do you guys have any idea or thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when it comes to handling and owning a firearm, it is paramount to treat the firearm, like it's loaded, like it's ready to fire, and it's something to be respected for sure. And I think some of my best memories are going out with friends, especially you, Sagan, going out shooting and honing those skills of target practice and reloading, and seeing capabilities of the firearm, and knowing that it's a tool. It's like not to be played with, um and to just be utilized for this, its purpose: self-defense, sport, hunting. I think if everybody handling and owning a firearm needs to understand that basic fact of firearm safety.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think on top of that, you may not be the person who has the firearms. Say you're going out camping with some friends, right? And you're going to go out somewhere in the wilderness, and one of your buddies says, "Well, I'm bringing a shotgun." That's great. You don't have to be the one in charge of that. But what happens if you are in a situation where you need to use that shotgun? I don't know what it might be. Maybe you're a coyote's attacking you. I don't know. Yeah. Right? You don't know what it's going to be. And there's no one else around. And if you don't know how to use that shotgun, it could mean life or death. So again, like even if you are not into the firearm culture, that's okay. But you need to at least know the basics. And that's what we're going to talk about.
I think everybody has had, some sort of situation to learn from. And I think especially when you're brand new to it, there are good ways to learn, and there are some very difficult lessons that you learn if you do it incorrectly. And I think for us, we want to stress that, we're not professionals. We know how to handle our personal firearms, and some of our advice might not fit for what your firearm or what whoever you're shooting with firearm works. So I think take it with a grain of salt. But I think, fundamentals of what we want to go over is, barrel and trigger discipline, treat every firearm like it's loaded. Hot and cold range, you have an area where this is where we shoot. This is the line that is drawn. Nobody crosses it when people are firing it. And then when you're ready to go, look at targets or the couple of cans or bottles that you shot up, everybody is on the same page, and make sure that when the range is cold, firearms are put away. And then obviously storage and ammunition storage as well. Like those are just basics of like keep your gun in a safe location, keep your ammunition separate if you have little kids in the house. And we can go into more details in a minute about teaching your kids. But I think topmost rule is every firearm is loaded no matter what. You treat it like it is, even if it isn't. You don't aim it at anybody. You look at, you only, aim and shoot at what you plan to shoot. And that, 90% of the time will help you cover that. But I think also being comfortable, I've worked with a lot of people who are so skittish that they forget some of those fundamental rules. I've been shooting with some friends that have never shot firearms before, and they've seen in the movies, you just aim the gun up in the air and just start shooting. It's terrifying to shoot with somebody who would like to, pull the moves off in the movies, when really that's probably the worst place to learn firearm safety.
Yeah.
So,
and you know what? That actually brings up a good point that maybe we should make is some of the misconceptions with gun culture and what people think when they think of a firearm, right? A lot of people think, well, it's like the movies, man. I'm gonna totally gray man this, and
bandoliers over your shoulder.
So where's the full auto button, right? Stuff like that. And you're like, dude, you are so far off, right? Yeah. People totally don't get Rambo. It. Yeah, and I think anybody that's in the firearm community that does use it for a hobby has had experiences like that where you're like, oh my gosh, I might die, right? Yeah. And this is stuff that, and we've had articles on the website before that have kind of discussed this stuff. But this is the kind of stuff that you might want to teach people so that they kind of know. I think
Yeah.
the other issue is a lot of people think that gun people that are what you call a gun nut are like obsessed with the day that they might be able to shoot an intruder or blow somebody to pieces, and that's all they're dreaming about when they go to the range is, oh man, I can't wait to take
Yeah.
someone out. So let me ask you this, Austin. When you go target practicing, are you just dreaming of the day that you can just blast a robber in the face?
No, I hope that day never comes, honestly.
I know
Yeah.
it's terrifying.
So why are you into firearms?
Well, self-defense is obviously a reason. I want to protect myself and my family, but also it's fun to go to the range, go have a good time with people I trust around firearms.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. I mean, that is one of the misconceptions that we have a lot of the time is this that gun people are just dying to shoot somebody. And it's like, gosh, no, but there is this kind of feeling of safety knowing that you know how to handle a firearm so well that if something happens, nobody's going to take anything from you,
Yeah.
that you will be safe. And that level of safety, nobody wants to kill anybody, but the world's a scary, dangerous place. And to know that you have a little bit of protection in your back pocket feels really good.
Yeah. I would much rather have one in the time of crisis than not have one.
Yeah, exactly. And if you get robbed 9 times out of 10, give them your stuff. There's no reason, even if you have a firearm, to get involved unless your life or your family's life is threatened. And I think that's kind of the stuff that we want to kind of just briefly talk about is, okay, maybe your family is not a gun family. Maybe they're not at all interested in it. But I think everybody should have their kids learn what firearms are,
Yeah.
to not be afraid of them, to take the
Honestly,
fun, the scare out of it.
and I've wanted personally to, I have basic firearm experience and training, but I want to get a little bit more into, the methodology of it, the going through my home, um, working through like scenarios, I want to practice, and practice makes perfect. Like it would be in my best interest to learn those things so that at least for me, I know I would be good to go in a situation.
Mhm.
It's not for everybody, but I feel like it's my responsibility.
Well,
And that, oh, go ahead, Austin.
sorry, where did you guys first learn firearm safety and what guns are?
Personally, I came from a home that was not, I wouldn't say anti-gun, but not really into them. And through scouts, I started to learn. I kind of enjoyed it from just shooting basic 22s and skeet. And so my parents said, you know what you need to do before we do really any of this and get too into it is you need to take a hunter safety course. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had no intention of hunting, but they made a good point about that you need to know the basics first before you really get into it. And from there, I gained a really a strong love for it. The fact that, I mean, if there's ever something that happens, we have a natural disaster, anything else like that,
Yeah.
my family's safe because I know how to use a firearm and my family knows how to use it too.
Yeah. Yeah. Just shooting out with my dad, um, dad and brothers going out, just having a fun time, but learning like there there are some uh, wrong ways to handle a gun, and so we go through those. It's almost like eliminating the curiosity of, you know, whoa, what is this? Like we all had guns growing up, so it was never like a, hey, I want to show you this thing that it's up in my dad's closet. It was like,
Right.
it was like we just had it, it was there. We shot it correctly in, at the correct location, and just had a good time. And I think going back to earlier what you said, Sagan, like, you know, go out in nature and make sure it's, and I think this is actually really important too, is choose a location that is kind of away from town, like out, out in the boonies, and make sure there's nothing in the backdrop. It's just pile of dirt, and you're not shooting up in the air, but or watching your ricochets going off forever. Like, just like picking a location's half the battle too, honestly.
Yeah, I think a lot of gun safety is just common sense.
Yes.
You got to use it. You got to use it. I mean, all the stuff we're going to talk about is just like, well, duh. But
Yeah.
really, this is the mistakes that people make. A gun is a tool. And if it's used correctly, if it's not romanticized to be this killing machine, but understood for what it is, then it's really fun. It's a good pastime, and it's a good protector. It
Yeah.
can provide food for your family. There's a lot of good attributes to it, but you got to learn the basics first. I think that's a good point, Tylen. What about you, Austin? How did you learn?
Kind of the same as Tylen, just grew up with them in the home. My dad would take us out shooting. We'd go like way out in the West Desert and like do
nice.
exactly what Tylen said, is find a nice backdrop away from any people at all. We were pretty far out there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, just so people know, you have to be at least 150 yards away from a major road to go shooting. That's one basic. So you do have to be out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my parents were pretty strict about guns in general, even squirt guns, toy guns. It was a big deal that you don't point those at people at all, ever. And that's just kind of been ingrained with me, and I think it was a good decision on their part.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's roll into this. I'm going to ask you this, Austin, because firearms are often an essential tool in a lot of different situations. Like hunting, you're probably the most attributed to hunting out of the three of us. But there's other things, not just protection. Why would you? I mean, let me ask you this first off. Do you think every single person in America should have a firearm?
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
And you may not think that yourself, sitting at home thinking about it and going, that's not for me. That's okay. But do you think every single person, Austin, should know how to use one?
Yeah.
And why?
There's probably going to come a day when you'll come across one, you'll be handed one, you'll find one. I don't know what it is, but you're going to want to know how to handle it properly, without harming yourself or others.
Yeah. I look
what
at
do you
it
think,
as
Tyler?
like, I look at it as like, there's a lot of political sentiment going around about not arming certain groups or not having certain people armed. I don't believe in that. I think everybody should be armed. Within, like, you wouldn't arm like children at school for sure, and we could get into something deeper on another.
We could talk semantics, but it's more the reason why there's so many issues with firearms is because people haven't been taught what they are, and they haven't been taught the safety. Yeah. And if they were, I think you're right. Most people should at least know it, if not have one themselves.
And they're ill portrayed by the media and Hollywood, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think the forefathers knew that. They knew that, especially when you're dealing with a tyrannical government, it is important for everyone to be armed, no matter what.
I think that's a perfect point, because there's a famous quote that's essentially, an armed society is a polite society, but that doesn't just go for the people, right? And we always think of that like, well, that means that you're not going to get robbed. Well, that's true, right? I mean, if every single robber knew that, most people are carrying, they're probably not going to be doing that.
Yeah.
But second of all, uh, it lets the government know that the people are in charge. That, that's how it should be, is that our government, especially in the United States and other places that have democracies, the government at any point, you may not think that your government today is going to turn into some tyrannical government. No, there's checks and balances. Well, at the end of the day, if
That
it may
could all
not be
go
them,
away.
yeah, they could, and it could be 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, where somebody goes, I mean, that's how Hitler got into power. That's how Stalin got into power, is they went, these guns are really bad, guys. And at that point, there was a really nice guy. And a lot of people support him, and they got rid of gun control, or they got gun control. They got rid of firearms, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden,
They
they
disarmed the
controlled.
population.
Yeah, and they controlled everything. I saw a video a while ago, and it was a woman speaking, and she had survived the Holocaust, and she said, I believe she lived in Poland. No, it was Austria, and she said the day everything changed was when they took everyone's firearms away. There was a school shooting. Yes, there were school shootings back in the 30s, and she the Nazis went, oh, this is terrible. We can't have this. Everybody, let's turn in our guns. Everybody was on board with it. They did. It wasn't even more than, I think, a month or two after the first concentration camps were built.
Yeah.
Because at that point they knew, when they knock on your door, you're not going to be knocking back with a shotgun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think this goes back to what I keep pressing, is the self-reliance. Do not rely on anybody else to protect you or your family. Do not rely on the government. Do not rely on your gun-toting neighbor. Don't rely on anybody but yourself.
That really comes back to it, doesn't it? Because you may not be the person who loves the firearm, right? And that's okay. But what if you're in a situation when you're camping and you're the one being attacked by a cougar or a wolf, and there is no one that's gonna save you besides you and maybe the shotgun that your buddy brought? That might be the meaning between life and death. And same thing, look at Katrina. When Hurricane Katrina happened, a lot of people said, well, I didn't need firearms. Well, they learned real quickly they were the prime targets of looting. The people who had firearms did not get looted. Same thing with last year with the hurricanes in Florida. There's a whole bunch of people that just sat on their porches, and they had their firearms, and they just sat there, and people didn't loot there, but they loot the town, the city, or not the city, the street over from them.
Yeah.
It is the equalizer. And again, if you don't want to have one, that's your own prerogative, but you need to understand the utility of them. That's what we're trying to get into. We're not trying to have a political discussion. We're just trying to point out that this is important.
Wasn't what is it, the average time that police officers are able to respond to a situation like 12 minutes or something?
Yeah, if you're lucky. It depends on where you're at. If it's a metropolitan area, it can be up to 27 minutes easily.
It's like 12 minutes or 27 minutes. That's a long freaking time.
When there was all the stuff going on in Oregon during the protests and everything back in 2020, there were people reporting when they were getting robbed, their houses being broken into, a 3-hour wait before the police arrived.
Wow.
Because they were so inundated with calls. So
that's terrifying. I think that should kind of be a wake-up call. I don't, not to get too political, but it doesn't matter which side you are on. That should be a wake-up call to anybody. It doesn't, and I think that's our sentiment of this whole episode, is like, you need to understand the importance of firearms. You need to understand the safety, sure, but also what it stands for and what different what's the word, like different freedoms and rights that you have as a citizen. I think it's important that, it's not about, collecting as many as you can, and, sure, that's fun. But I think as a dutiful citizen, it is pivotal that you arm yourself, you learn that firearm, you teach those that are around you, and you make sure that you stay on top of it.
Yeah.
Because if not, you are not taking care of yourself or those around you.
Yeah, I think, and I'm just going to leave it at this from any type of political standpoint, then we'll continue on from here. If you feel like you're a minority, and maybe you are, I'm not saying if you feel, I'm saying if you are a minority and you're worried about being oppressed, well, nobody can have a hate crime on you if you are armed. You can protect yourself from that. If you feel like your family is going to be a part of whatever it may be, if you're afraid of anything, that firearm is the great equalizer. And if you are afraid of where the country may be going, or your country, or whatever it may be, if you're concerned about anything whatsoever, you're concerned that the left is going to do X or the right is going to do X, or whoever you're scared of, or whatever you think is going to be scary, a firearm is the best protection. It's going to help you sleep at night if you know how to use it and you know how to store it properly and how to be safe. And on top of that, if you're worried about your family being a victim of a gun crime, the only way to really protect yourself and your family, to help them understand what a firearm is to get them involved with one and teach them the right way to use it. So again, if you don't have a firearm in your home, that's okay. If you never want to have one in your home, that's okay. Go get a Nerf gun, go get a water gun, teach your family how to use one. And this is what we're going to talk about. It doesn't have to be you're pulling out a Colt 45 and all right, well, this is how to load it. No, do what you feel is comfortable for you. But at the end of the day, this is essential. We live in a world with guns.
Yeah.
You
You're
have to accept it. Yeah, you have to accept it. And you should learn. All we're doing is we're encouraging you to understand whoever you are, whatever situation you're in, there is an advantage to it. And I really do hope that you can get yourself in a right state of mind, or as a right person, that you can feel comfortable with that in whatever way you can. So that's what this is the basics about. Is again, this is for people all across the board. You want to teach your kids how to use a gun, that's great. This is going to teach them that in a safe way. If you want to teach your friends before you go out shooting, that's great too. Or let's say that you have no intention ever whatsoever to ever have a gun. You live in a country that doesn't have them. I don't know, maybe you're a felon, you can't even own a firearm. Still take this, still learn this at least, so that you at least know the basics, so that if anything ever happens, whether it may be as the farthest remote possibility, you'll be able to still know how to use that firearm. The fact of the matter is, firearms are part of everyday life. Well, no matter where you are, we live in a world with firearms. Let's learn how to use them. Let's learn how to use them and protect ourselves. Let's teach our kids. If you're not a person that ever is going to have a firearm, still take this course.
Let's learn how to use them safely.
Yeah, let's at least teach your kids, hey, this is what a safety is. Hey, this is how you use a gun. Hey, don't point it at your head. Like, this is basic stuff. Let's just get it out there. And fact of the matter is, again, even if you don't like firearms, you should at least learn this. Take the scare tactic out of it and just learn what it is as a tool. It's a hammer at the very least. It's just like any other tool. You use it that way. So anyway, let's get into that. Let's kind of roll with that. And let's start talking about some of those brief things that we're going to talk about further in the course. So first off, Tylen, let's have you start us off with this. What is firearm safety in general?
Barrel and trigger discipline, definitely, it's essential, like even just positioning your fingers off the trigger at all times, unless you're ready to fire. And there's a lot of conditions that need to be met before that. So Make sure the barrel is pointed down the range, aimed at the target you want to do, but you want to shoot at, but make sure that it is also there's nothing behind the target that could be damaged or impacted. And your finger does not touch that trigger until you are ready to fire, which means
so what about if you're reloading? Can you point it at your friend's head?
no, absolutely not.
Well, it doesn't have a bullet in it, right?
Like I said
Does it?
earlier, every gun is loaded. Just like I know it's silly to say, but it's every gun, imagine, has a round in it. And if you treat it like that, it makes it a little more serious. Where you're aiming it, where you're holding it, where you set it down to rest. It is absolutely pivotal to see, like, okay, if I set this gun here, will anybody become in line of fire? Even if it's just sitting, not anybody touching it. You know, what if there was a discharge, a random discharge that happens? You know, what about, you got some bad ammunition or something, or you're shooting an older gun? You never know. So just, I think, barrel pointed in a direction that's not going to impact anybody, and especially when you're ready to fire down the range, and your finger or trigger finger does not touch the trigger until you are ready to fire, which means you prop it up on the side. Don't even enter the trigger guard. And most of the time, firearms will actually have a little rest area. My little Taurus G2, I know it's a pleb gun, but it has like a little indent, a little like spot just to rest that trigger finger. And I think that is that's the basics.
I think the important thing about that too is exactly what you said. I think so. Like George Clooney a little while ago was doing an interview talking about firearm safety because of certain events that happened recently in Hollywood where somebody died from a discharge of a firearm. Sure. And we won't get into that. But what he said is, he said, doesn't matter if the guy just handed you a prop gun that never could fire a real bullet, has shown you what ammo is in there, has closed the chamber for you and let you know. You then afterwards look at it, you check it, you make sure it's dummy rounds. You do everything that you can, even if it's a prop gun.
You
right?
Go through and do the exact same check.
Yep.
And I think if you look at the statistics of a lot of the what do they call them? The negligent
discharges, yeah.
Those could have been prevented if you just follow those simple steps of check the firearm, check to see if it's loaded, aim it away from somebody, keep your finger off the trigger. If everybody was to sit and repeat and go through, the accidental shootings would go down.
Absolutely.
Dramatically.
So, that's a good point.
And then, back to the hot and cold range, we discussed, like, finding a range is critical, and sometimes it's hard. So the easiest way is just go to an indoor range, and sometimes that can be a little intimidating too, because in fact, I've had situations where you go there and the range marshal or whatever his name, whatever title they give those
range
guys,
master, I think is
range master, range marshal, whatever. They might come off pompous, but if they're doing their job correctly, they're just trying to make sure everybody's safe. And I know, sometimes they're not the best to interact with, but at least you need to practice those safe handling practices, and and call somebody out too. If you see somebody waving the gun around in the lane next to you, or trying to get crazy with it, it's not a toy.
No,
it's not something that needs to be messed with. And I hope I don't sound like a FUD when I say this. yeah, you're trying to look cool. You're trying to do some fun, crazy stuff. You can have fun and you can shoot and be safe all at the same time. I've had excellent memories of, taking the old junkyard car down at the end of the range. And we did that for a family reunion. Talk about, redneck, like letting loose on two scrap vehicles and the whole family just shooting. And that was so much freaking fun. But we did it safely, right? We had a hot cold system on the range. And
So briefly, Tylen, what is the difference between a hot and cold range?
well, like I said earlier, hot means it's firing, everybody's shooting, or currently in the process to get ready to shoot, which means you actually physically draw a line. You do not cross that line until it's ready to go. And then cold range is nobody's firing. And this is something that everybody knows. Like everybody yells, "Hey, range is cold. No firing. Firearms down. Safety's on." So
And that's I think why it's a good thing that you pointed out that the best way if you're very novice is to go to an indoor range, and you can even go in and you can say, hey, look, I'm trying to kind of teach some firearm safety. I don't really have a gun. I'm not really into this. I'm just trying to learn a little bit. And I'll make you bet most of the time one of those range masters will walk with you and help you.
Yeah.
And show you the basics too. And there's really that danger level is a lot more mitigated. But that is one thing, especially too, if you are out in the outdoors and you've got a kind of impromptu range, you don't just go and, okay, well, people stop shooting, they're reloading now, I'm going to go out and check my target. No, you have to, like you said, Tylen, go, hey, can we close the range? Can it be cold? And everybody goes, yeah, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. That way, everybody puts their guns away. That they're all going checking their targets.
Yep.
Nobody's loading. Nobody's, it's basics. But like you said, Tylen, it's you have to do the basics.
Yeah, and with the basics like firearm storage, keeping the gun safe, locked, putting the guns away. I know it's important to have your gun handy by the bedside. I understand that. And I actually have a bedside safe, which is very quick. It's just like having it in a drawer, but it's locked with a biometric thumbprint. And that's a perfect option to have it ready, but safe as well. I would hate to have a situation where somebody didn't have their firearm put away correctly and kept their ammunition in a safe location, and somebody who was too curious was able to get access to that. It's not to slow you down per se. It's to make it difficult for young ones, just to quell that curiosity. I think having a proper place to store them, especially ones that you're not planning to use to defend your home, make sure they're unloaded, stored correctly, and ammunition stored separately so that, in case you do forget to lock the safe, at least the ammunition is locked up as well. And plus, there may be some distressed family members or, boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, somebody who's going through hard times. I'm going off of, just stories I've heard, but proper firearm storage was pretty key to that. So
yeah,
just, make sure you're protected, make sure those around you are protected, and make sure they know, like, this firearm is locked up away because I don't want it to be played with. It's not a toy. We will take it out to go shoot when we're ready. So
yeah. And this is just something to bring up, and I think you brought it up really well, Tylen, is that the number one cause of death with firearms, which brings up, I think, a large majority of firearm deaths and injuries, is suicide. And storage of your firearms and ammunition is the key to avoiding that. I mean, you got to get help. You got to do things. I'm not going to give you that advice, but
we don't. We have no experience.
Yeah, no experience. But if you have it safely kept away and it's only you that knows how to get to it, then that's great, because nobody else can get to it. And that's the fact of the matter. You're not going to have to worry about regret of somebody getting a hold of your firearm and doing something you wish they hadn't.
Sure.
And if you are the person that is going through that yourself, you need to immediately, as soon as you're starting to have those thoughts, get that firearm, those firearms out of your home. Call a relative, call a friend to take them from you. There's no shame in that. And on top of that, if you don't have anybody like that for you, that's okay. Your local gun range will be happy to take it for you if you explain the situation. Even the police department in most areas will be more than happy to. I even know that even in our city, the hospital will. The hospital will find a place. If you come to them and you say, hey, I need somebody to come here. This is my code. I can't be here. They'll help you out. Like, there is so many resources. So that's a good point. Is storage is about not only accidental discharges, but somebody using it for a negligent purpose. I think of all the school shootings, and it disappoints me so much. A lot of the time, not even a lot of time, it's every time it's somebody got a hold of a firearm that they shouldn't have a hold of. And they never learned what a firearm is. No person that's ever committed any of those crimes. And the same thing with robberies or shootings, gang shootings. They don't understand what a firearm is, and they never were taught these basic things and this respect for a firearm. Then they were allowed to get a hold of one that they shouldn't have gotten allowed hold to. So if you don't want that to be a situation for you, storage is super important. I think that's great. So Austin, real quick for you, how do you store your firearms? Because you have younger children at home.
In a safe that only my wife and I can access. And obviously I don't show the kids where that is and how to get into it and all that, right? Like, be smart with your guns, just like you guys are saying, right? And keeping kids safe is probably my number one priority, since they're running around my house. I don't want those problems. I don't want to be on the news and be one of those guys whose 5-year-old kid found dad's gun and was showing it to their friend, and it goes off for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I mean, I have similar to you. I have a Thailand. I have a safe underneath my bed that I keep everything, as well as a safe inside my cabinet. When we move to our new home, what we're going to have also is a gun storage room, where anything that's not for self-defense will be locked behind a biometric lock on the door, and we'll have no access to. There literally will be no way for anybody to get in there besides me and Rachel. So,
all right.
So anyway, let's move on from that. Austin, let's kind of talk about different parts of a firearm. What really does that mean? Is it just a boomstick? Is it just got a trigger and you stick a bullet in and you pull the trigger and it goes boom? Or what exactly is a firearm? And
I mean, you pretty much described every gun there is, right?
Yeah, perfect, easy.
So I think some of the materials we want to cover in our course is what different actions are, kind of go over what bolt actions and pump actions and lever actions and how all those work, right?
Yeah.
And kind of what the different safety options are on each gun. Each gun's going to be a little different in what they offer. I know even just looking at handguns, there could be 2 to 3 or none as far as safety options are concerned. I know my handguns, I think they both have trigger safeties as well as like a thumb safety. And then there's others that, like that one you and I shot, Sagan, was it had a grip safety on that.
The
Oh
Ruger
yeah,
Max
the
9?
Ruger Max.
Yeah, the
9,
Ruger
yeah.
Max 9. Yeah.
Guys, go read the review on our website.
Yeah, it's a glowing
securessociety.com.
review. We just loved
You
it so
can
much.
find out about the Wendigos.
Yeah. Oh, that was a different one, but yes.
I know. Find out about the Wendigos.
Yeah, so those are kind of two things we'd want to include, and also like the different barrels, lengths, and sight combinations. Most guns are going to ship with like little gosh, what are those called?
Iron sights.
Iron sights. Yeah. Yeah, those are going to be shipped on those kind of out of the box, right? And what your upgrade options are there if you want to do that, and how those work, how scopes work, and
there's advantages to iron sights versus you may hear from about red dot sights or scopes or holographic sights.
That's all the cool stuff.
That's the fun stuff. Yeah,
that's the fun stuff.
Yeah, but you got to start with the basics of.
Oh yeah,
you got to learn how to use those iron sights, because you can't always rely on your scope, especially if you're a dummy and you drop your gun and your glass breaks.
Yeah,
then you're hosed. So.
Yep, that's true. And honestly, if you know how to use an iron sight, a red dot sight's gonna be 10 times easier for you.
Right.
So that would be, if you're starting anywhere, start with not red dot.
Iron sights.
Start with iron sights.
Guys, you heard it here first. Sagan says to start with red dots. All right. Let's get those pores out of here, and let's
perfect. Well, you know what? Pores can still buy those cheap Amazon $25, the whatever they call them, the nasty ones. Don't buy those, by the way.
The sight marks.
I bought one of those.
Yeah, exactly. Austin, can you give us a glowing review on your $25?
Wait, you bought one?
It was really difficult to sight in. I haven't used it in a while.
You actually you bought one and it didn't hold zero or anything?
It felt like it moved around a lot. I don't know if I ever got it dialed in 100%.
I think they don't talk about it, but those are only made for airsoft.
Yeah,
they don't let anybody
that would
know.
Explain a lot.
Yeah.
Also, my gun didn't really fire consistently anyways, so that's another problem.
It's a whole different story.
And maybe we could have a little clip of Austin going through his problem gun.
There you go.
We'll just cut in a clip and just say, "Hey, this is what's going on." No one wants to see
that piece of crap.
No, I even had a buddy who he bought a wish.com ACOG site, so like a prism site, and an ACOG site, just so you guys know, is probably easily going to be an $800 scope. It can go up from there depending on what type you've got. For the real Trijicon ACOGs, right? He can't even get it to zero. He has to he's like, well, it's just a few steps down below zero is where I actually aim with it. And I'm like, dude, get that crap off of there. I don't care. I don't care if you get yourself a cheap, decent SIG Tango MSR or something. Get something else.
And I think maybe this is something we could cover in like future articles of, like, if you're buying your gun accessories from Wish, I mean, even Amazon. I know, Sagan, you buy some stuff from Amazon and have some good stuff with it.
Well, you have to do your research.
You have to do research. And if you're buying stuff that's coming from China, Amazon is very picky about what kind of gun things they allow. Like even Magpul has some of their stuff on there. You got to do some research. Please just make sure it's rated for your firearm.
Yeah. And not every single thing that's going to come from China is bad. Hollow Sun is a great brand.
Sun.
They're all Chinese
fanboy.
They're all Chinese knockoffs, baby, but they work.
Hey,
I mean, they're using
them
in
more
Ukraine.
proven.
Yeah,
Ukraine
they're
has
being
proved
used
it.
in Ukraine, but although sight marks have been seen there too, so I don't know how much that means. But
Maybe on the Russian side, those
no,
on those
unfortunately not.
Mosinagats.
So on top of that, anyway, fact of the matter is that good quality parts matter if you do get into it, but um, there are differences, and that is important to know the differences. And has everything got a magazine clip that holds 50,000 rounds, Austin? Because
I
that's
mean,
what
all mine
CNN.
do.
That's what CNN
That's
taught
what
me
I'm
is
packing, right?
that
We
I have
have
15
a
magazine clips.
ghost gun with a
Yeah.
90,000 clip.
A 90,000 clip. Yeah. My pump shotgun has a 50,000 round magazine clip.
Yeah.
Yeah. And full auto.
Yeah, we all
So
know those are kind of ridiculous numbers, right? But not everybody does. So we'll go over that in our course too, right?
mm,
Not every gun has a 30 capacity magazine, even though the media likes to portray that they all do. And
most
Well, and
don't.
some
Yeah.
some states don't even
yeah,
legally
some
allow
states don't
them.
allow it, like Oregon.
Yeah.
California.
And in certain circumstances, you don't want a 30 round magazine. Like
Yeah,
when I use my AR-15, I have a bipod, and if I want to lay prone, I can use a 30 round, but I prefer using a 20 round clip because it just
Yeah.
fits better and I have more movement. There's reality to it. So, but not everything has a magazine either.
I think
Yeah.
he misspoke, guys. Don't get mad at him. He meant 20 round mag, not 20 round clip.
Did I say clip?
He just got mixed up. It's okay.
Oh no! See, you know
it's
what?
okay.
I
You're
should
gonna get
Burn him in
roasted.
burn him in the comments. Come on, guys.
man. I should see if Huffington Post will hire me now. I'm doing their work for them.
I think
Bezos, call me.
I think the other thing too is playing the game that the ATF is rolling out. We discussed in episode 1 some of the BS that they were pulling. Hopefully some of that stuff gets figured out. I think basics, just keep your firearm with what's legal. Don't try to get too crazy with it. Like even with the binary triggers, I couldn't ever wrap my head around why like anybody would want to get behind that. Like why would you get a binary trigger even though you know for a fact they're gonna make them illegal? Like you're just throwing your money away. And I know, okay, sure, you want to defend your right for the binary trigger. I get it, more power to you. But you just gotta expect, like, don't be surprised when they say, okay, yep, the binary triggers are bye-bye. Or, bump stocks are bye-bye.
I think you're going to get more roasted in the comments for that than I will for the clips.
I know.
But you know what? That's the beauty of firearms, that everybody's got different opinions. Personally, I think, you know what, screw it. I think the ATF shouldn't exist at all, or be very limited, and should be making
I know,
these
we'll
kind of
see.
rules.
We'll see,
But we'll
right?
see. Yeah, but again, that actually brings up a really good point. When you know the safety and when you know the practice, I don't care if you have one of your 50,000 million round clips with the full auto AK-47 AR, and everything is top military grade, and you got a minigun. I don't care. If you are doing the basic safeties, you're not going to have any issues. You can still, and that's the problem, is if everybody followed these basic rules and was truly educated in firearms, we would have no need for an ATF to tell us what we can and can't do. So let's be honest, if you want to fight back against what you may consider tyranny of the ATF or the government taking my guns away from me, or vice versa, you're scared to death of guns in general because you watch too much CNN. Fact is, this is the solution to either problem. Just learn what they are and protect yourself and understand them and come to a comprehension of them. So, and really, this is the other thing, and this we'll just kind of go more into it, but just so you know, really a lot of it too, and where it gets kind of fun, is to see how good you are with a firearm. Um, it's that there's basics to that too. So a lot of the time, uh, in the U.S. military, a lot of guys, especially in the Iraq War, the Afghanistan War, would come back and they say, it's crazy. The enemy's using these AKs and they're just so inaccurate. So there became this like myth that AK-47s are super inaccurate and they can't hit the broadside of a barn door. And I can tell you, I have an AK, and
That's been your experience, right?
yeah, no, I'm terrible. I'm terrible with it, but I can still actually no, I can still shoot very accurate. It's just as accurate as my AR. The thing is that these were people that were farmers and they got an old rusty AK. They didn't know how to use it, and they were just shooting like crazy and just shooting anything that they could. And that's where it came to. And it was not the rifle's fault. It's that most of them, they actually found out a lot of the enemy didn't even know how to use their iron sights.
They're not trained.
Yeah, they were absolutely not trained. They were given an AK and they said, go get your 72 virgins. And that's not the right way to do it.
Which I think, Sagan,
Uh-huh.
you better prove that you can't, you can hit the broadside of a barn. Okay, let's see.
No, trust me, when we go and do our shooting in May, no, we'll all get to try it and you all go, wow, this thing's actually pretty fun. It's again, it's a Palmetto State Armory, but that thing is pretty smooth and pretty sweet. I
want one so bad.
And it is accurate. And it's a tack driver, man. I'm blown away by that thing. So anyway, we will talk about proper stance. There is an actual stance, and it does kind of vary depending on what type of firearm you're using. You stand a little differently, and there are even variations on that. There's not just one way to hold your pistol. There's not just one way to keep your feet held when you're using a pistol. And same thing, you're not going to use it the same way when you're using a rifle. There's a difference between standing, going prone, which is laying down, or crouching. There's a lot to it, and we're going to talk about that too. And you should be practicing that, even again if it's a Nerf gun at home. You should learn that. And on top of that is to be accurate. It sounds crazy, but if you want to be accurate and you want to actually have fun, you have to know where you're pointing the firearm. And that's where the iron sights come in. That's where the red dot sights come in. That's where the scopes come in. And you have to learn how to dial them in too. So you're not just going to pull a scope out of the box and go, sweet, I just spent $1,300 on this sweet Trigicon, voodoo, and I'm gonna be just able to shoot anything. Well, if you don't know how to sight it in, then it's worthless to you, and you might as well just get the sight mark from Amazon.
I think also, with some of these, we'll have some examples that we can show on the website. We can do some YouTube videos of it so that you can see how to do these.
Yeah.
And it's easier to do than to just sit and watch. Like, go out and try it.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to learn, say you're nervous about AR-15s, learn about them. Get educated.
Like managing recoil.
Exactly.
You can't manage recoil by watching a video.
No, go. If you are nervous around it, don't take Anderson Cooper at overreacting on television, going, oh, it's a death machine. Go and take the AR-15. Go to your local range, rent one, because most of them will let you rent one. Go get a box of ammo. Have a range master sit next to you and teach you how to use the thing. And you will realize it is one of the lightest shooting firearms, and it's actually pretty fun because that thing most of them are tack drivers too. It's not a super powerful round. It really isn't.
Yeah.
They're pretty weak, to be honest, and you're never going to know that. Like you said, Tylen, you're not going to know it until you go, oh, I pulled the trigger and it didn't hurt my shoulder and it didn't go flying. Was just like a little bump, And learning how to do that is important. So all in all, like I said, we said, by the time that this comes out, we should have the basics out for you to start learning. And we really do hope that you do learn them. again, this is a first step. This is something that you can do with your kids. We'll have further trainings and accolades that you can earn down the road, more specific for a shotgun, more
I think,
specific for a
Austin,
revolver.
what do you think everybody can expect to start seeing more from us, like from our channel and the brand for this?
For our accolades,
Yeah,
as soon as we get our butts in gear and do it.
Yeah. I think we've got some things in mind, some brainstorming we got to figure out. But yeah, I think if we, especially getting some feedback from community members, we've got some big things planned for you guys.
Yeah.
And ourselves.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and
Like,
ourselves.
we're going to hold ourselves to the same standards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
We're
No, we-
not going to tell you guys to do stuff we're not doing ourselves.
Yeah.
100%.
We want this to be an asset for you and your family. That's really what it comes down to, because we need that asset to
Yeah.
ourselves. Even if nobody ever watches this and nobody ever cares, this will be a path we're going to take down to better
This
ourselves.
is more like our proof to ourselves. Like, look at,
Yeah.
we're able to, work through our firearm safety, or teaching my kids. Like, this is my proof to myself. Like, I think honestly, it's what took me to actually get this going with you guys is I'm just tired of not doing anything about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, we're tying that up. Like we said, next time that we have a podcast, it's going to be announcing really the roadmap ahead and how we really want to set up this program. And that's what we'll go in depth with. But we just kind of want to talk a little bit about one specific accolade, but do expect as we go along, we're probably going to, it won't be as fast as we like because we all have full-time jobs and lives and families, but we will listen to your criticisms. We want to make this the best thing ever. Yeah.
Tell us what you guys want to see,
We want this to be life-changing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Love y'all.
So hugs and kisses. Yep. There you go. Well, there you go.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
All right. Peace out.
That was fun.
Till next time.